Hey guys, Dylan from Noble Records coming at you with another video. Tonight I just kind of felt inclined to talk about just the role vinyl records have played in my life. If you know me at all, you know that records play a huge part of my life today. But I just kind of felt inclined to share just kind of the story of how that evolved for me in my life, when it started, all that stuff. A lot of people ask me, when did you start collecting all that stuff? And just tonight, I was thinking about it, just kind of looking back on how crazy it is that a piece of plastic and a cardboard sleeve could play such a huge role in someone's life. But for me, it has been just completely life changing, just dealing with records. And as crazy as that sounds, there's a little more to it than just records. But if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. I own a record store in Matthews, North Carolina called Noble Records. You can follow us on Instagram at Noble Records and keep up with us. We buy big collections and have a lot of fun. So stay in contact with us. We love meeting new people. So I guess it all started when I was about 10 years old. I was homeschooled that year. I wasn't homeschooled my entire childhood, but that year I was. And I just really kind of enjoyed the freedom of being homeschooled, kind of having the chance to not be around a bunch of other kids that were kind of influencing the decisions that I made and the hobbies that I had and my self-confidence and all that stuff. It was really cool just to have that 1 year to be able to focus on myself and focus on like what I really liked and what I really had interests in and stuff. And so that particular year, I really got into music. Like, really enjoyed listening to music. I got a Walkman cassette player, and I had a few cassettes, and I really started kind of leaning towards music, which was abnormal. Everyone I knew was into sports, and for whatever reason, my brain went towards music. And so, this particular week, my mom let me go up to my cousin's house. Me and my cousin were extremely close, and I love going up to his house in the mountains. I had this beautiful mountain home, and during the day when he was at school, I would kind of explore around the house. Wouldn't go outside much, just because I don't know. But I would like explore things that were in the house that I could have fun with. I probably wouldn't allowed to go outside. And so this one particular day, I was looking through. They had this huge like shelving system in their house, and they had all these books and all this stuff on. I was looking through the books and looking through stuff, and I realized like there was these drawers opened up, and then there are all these records in there. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is really cool, because I had seen records before, but I didn't, my parents never had any records, anything like that. So I started looking through the records, didn't know anything from anything. I didn't know what any of this music was. My parents listened to like gospel, and that was it. So I didn't know. And so there was a turntable in there, and I asked my aunt. She kind of showed me what was what, and just started going through the records and listening to them. And just my mind was blown when I pulled out this record, and I was like, "This is the coolest thing." That this like it was such a intentional like real experience with music. It wasn't like this tape player that was in this box that I couldn't see how the tape was working, or the CD player or whatever. It was like a real like hands-on experience where you can see how this music is coming out of this disc. It was incredible. And so I was drawn to it. Just abnormally drawn to this. Let's sat there and listen to records the whole day. I remember listening to Simon and Garfunkel. I think I listened to some Carpenters. The one I was really honed in on was this Bob Dylan, Highway 61 Revisited. For whatever reason, I just love this record. My name's Dylan, his name's Dylan. I don't know. It was just a cool record. And so my cousins got home. We were, I was listening to it. They were listening to it, and it kind of became a little bit of a tradition that when I would go up there, we'd pull some records out and listen to them. When I went home, when I was a kid, and even now, I was really obsessive. If I was into something, I was all in. So I got home and I was like, man, I really got to get some records. And I told my mom and dad about it, and we went by the library at my church, because my church had this library, and they had like one of those educational record players that you'd have in a school classroom or whatever. And they're like, yeah, we haven't used this thing in ages. You can have it. So I took that thing home, had it, and I remember my mom took me to Goodwill, and I wish I had it with me. I do. It's not any of these. Oh, friend, here it is. So, this is it. I wasn't sure I still had it, but went to Goodwill, and my mom picked this out. This is Don McLean American Pie, and it still had this this 45 like little. It's like made out of lead or something. This adapter, but this is the exact one that my mom is beat to crap. But my mom found it at Goodwill, and she's like, "This is a great song. You should buy this." So I got that, and I got Styx Cornerstone, and I got REO Speedwagon High Infidelity. Those were the 3 records that I got that day at Goodwill. So those 3 were on heavy rotation on that turntable. I listened to them over and over again, nonstop. I kind of realized that the sound wasn't really super great, and so like I was at a yard sale and I got a little bit better system and I got speakers, and just from there my passion for it just grew, my knowledge for it just grew. That was the one thing that I stuck with, that I never gave up. There were certain sports I was into, certain things here and there I was into, but that was the one constant in my life that I never gave up on. So it was something that every Saturday I would go to yard sales with my dad looking for records. Every time I was in a thrift store, near a thrift store, I would be going and look for records. And eventually, when I got into junior high, some of my friends got into records, and so we would go to flea markets together. We would swap records, all that stuff. I would be able to look out for them. They'd be able to look out for me. It was just a couple of us that were into it, but we really had fun looking for things. We used to, when I got my license, we'd always like skip school, skip church, go looking for records. Like that's what we always did. And so over the years, my friends just kind of, their passion for it dwindled away, and I ended up getting some of their records, and I just always was this crazy person who was into it. And there was definitely times where I sat and I thought, is there something wrong with my brain that I'm this into this? Like, I'm more into this than anything that anybody I know is into anything. Like, it captivates me in such a ridiculous way. So I ended up having a collection of about 1,000 records, and I had a rule that I wouldn't spend more than $3 on any record, and I never did. I had all the Beatles and all the Led Zeppelin and all the Pink Floyd and all that stuff. I mean, back then you could find them at thrift stores for nothing. I could tell you 1,000 stories of crazy records I found just for nothing. And so I graduated high school. I was in college. I still listened to records here and there. Ended up getting married. When I got married, just kind of my life turned upside down. Meeting my wife and us starting our new lives together. And at that point in life, nothing mattered but us, And so we moved into this teeny tiny apartment, and I had a part-time job. I was making $1,000 a month. So all the money I had to my name was $1,000 a month. I did not know what I was doing. I was not prepared for life. I was completely ill-equipped to pay the bills. And I started selling stuff that I had. So first thing to go was my record collection, because I did not have the room for it. And I was just in a really, my turntable that I had growing up had broken. And I just was like kind of in a transitional stage to where I was selling everything. I sold my guitars. Now to I just had 3 guitars left. I had 21 guitars. I like had a kind of a hobby of picking up and repairing and flipping guitars when I was young. So I had 21 guitars, sold them all down to just 3 that I had, and then I sold all my records down to maybe like 50, And I remember as I was going through them and I was selling them all, it broke my heart to do it. It really broke my heart to do it. But I had to, just in that season of life, I had to, and for some miracle, we didn't get any handouts from anybody, and we lived off $1,000 a month for the first year of our marriage. Unbelievable that we did that. I mean, we didn't live with our parents or anything. We had an apartment. Apartment was $600 a month, and we did it. So right after that, I immediately regretted selling my records. I missed them. I remembered that just magnetism I had to these records, how much they meant to me. I remembered the times when I was young that I felt like I didn't have any friends, and I felt like I didn't belong anywhere, and I knew that this was part of me. Like, I knew it was part of my life, and that it's as dumb as it sounds, these records were really important to me. And it wasn't the specific records, it was just records in general that were really super important to me. So I started going around and picking them up here and there again. Even though I had no money, I was figuring out how like I could buy two here, sell one, keep one. We're good, And so I started selling a little bit on eBay. I ended up losing my job, and I had $200 to my name was all I had. And this is a long story I need to tell on another episode probably, but I ended up buying this incredible collection. This was 2010. It was 7,000 records for $200, and it was an amazing collection. This collection was a godsend. I cannot tell you how much this collection changed my life. Buying it because I was able to learn so much about records in the process. Most of the records in that collection I had no idea what they were. It was like punk, it was new wave, it was classical, it was jazz. It was a bunch of stuff. This guy had owned a record store, and I ended up getting all I really knew about when I was a kid was classic rock. So I ended up getting all this stuff and learning so much about records, and then learning how to buy and sell records and collections and all that stuff. And that's how I started selling on eBay like around 2010, and that's when all that happened. So I was able to live off this collection for a couple years. And that was my sole job. My only job was to look for records and put them on eBay, and that's how I got by. And it was incredible that I was able to do that when I was young. I had no kids or anything like that, and it was just me and my wife. And so started having kids, had my first son. His name's Noble. And I made my business name Noble Records after him. And then, I wasn't really able to make a good enough living selling records. So kind of started working a bunch of odd jobs. I could tell you 20 jobs I had. I landscaped. I was I was a used car salesman. It was used and new. It was new and used. It was both. It wasn't just used. But I did car sales a couple times. I worked a ton of jobs. I worked at a glass factory for 2.5 years. So all these years, I ended up having my second son, Cannon, and I took a couple months off when we had Cannon, and I just realized like this time that I have with my family is just incredibly valuable. Around that time, my oldest son was diagnosed with autism, and so I kind of panicked a little bit. I knew that I needed a lot of money for him and for some treatment and things that we wanted to do, therapy and treatment and stuff. I knew that no one was going to help us, and so I needed to come up with some money. And at that point in my life, it felt pretty selfish for me to have a lot of records, and so I sold them, all of them, down to maybe 50, and it was probably about the same 50. Some of them I still have from my first collection, but sold almost everything, and just really had to realize that the records were not me. It was not a part of me. It was just something that I really enjoyed, and that I would come back to records at some point. So I ended up, long story short, during the process of me selling all those records, I started doing pop-ups, which, if you're not familiar with a pop-up, the concept is you pop up at a coffee shop or brewery or something like that. And I was doing these traveling pop-ups where I'd bring all these records and I'd start selling them. And then through the course of that pop-up process, I sold all my records. But I started meeting a lot of really cool people in the area, and I would see them every time I do a pop-up. They would come back around, and I got to become really good relationships with a lot of different people. If you have come to my pop-ups, there's still people that come to my shop now that were originally from my pop-ups that we've had this relationship all this time. And so during the course of that, like I was down to my last bit of my collection, and I ended up finding another collection, and it was a great collection. I ended up buying that, and then I could tell you 1,000 stories of collections I found, but then it started kind of snowballing, and then it kind of reignited my love for records. I ended up buying more records for myself, and then getting more, and so I was able to make a really good side hustle out of records. I was still working jobs I hated, still really felt like I could not make enough money to keep my head above the water. Really, really tough. And my main passion was to be home with my family and to be a part of my son's development as he was just trying to overcome all these obstacles, And so basically, I got laid off from my job in August of 2019. I was like, man, what am I gonna do? I'm like, I don't want to keep working jobs I hate. I don't want to. And so my wife was like, let's just open a record store. And I'm like, that's crazy. We can't do that, you know? And she really inspired me to do it and talked me into it. It's one of those situations to where I was like, man, this is crazy. This is a crazy decision to do this. I was risking everything, but I didn't have a whole lot to risk. You know, I didn't have a lot of money. When we were living paycheck to paycheck, and my severance was $1,000. So I had the record collection that I had amassed, $1,000 and some guitars, and so I started selling stuff. Sold several of my really nice guitars. Then I sold some grails, some big records in my collection that were worth a lot, and I started trading some really rare records that I had for just like more bulk. Found a place. I remember we found the perfect shop. I just, like, when I went to it and I stood in front of it, my heart was attached to this place. I was like, this is it. This is the shop. This is what I want. And called, and the landlord just, they weren't sure about me opening a record store. They didn't know that it would work. And we just kind of really try to talk them into it. We're like, we promise you we can do it. And so I just felt like if they could meet me, then they would agree. And finally they came and they met me there, and I just pled with them, please let me do this, you know. And they said yes. And I remember driving home that day after we had signed a lease to open this shop, not knowing how I'm going to pay rent or anything like that, but just being in tears, like crying, like, I can't believe I'm going to own a record store. This is my life's dream to do this. This is amazing that I'm going to be able to do this as my job. So that's a crazy story. I've got some videos talking about how we opened the store, but we didn't take out any loans, nothing like that. I just hustled and worked my butt off the next couple months getting the shop open, buying as many collections as I could afford to. And then I did have a lot of friends that brought me trade-ins and based on IOUs and all that stuff. So really, like, opening day, we probably had like 5,000 or 6,000 records, which in a record shop is not much. But we snowballed that and into the inventory that we had today. We probably have 20, 25,000, I don't know. But, you know, through the course of all of this, I could tell you so many stories about, like, people that I've met in the shop and people that I've become really good friends with the shop, and people that I've been able to help out, people that have helped me out. Just the community that has formed around my record shop is something that I would never trade for the world. I have so many customers that come in every day that every time I see them, my heart just leaps for joy. I love seeing them. You know, have fun with them, have fun talking to them. I care about them. I care about their lives. I care about how they're doing. They care about me. They care about my business. And, like, you know, a lot of people really get on to me because I don't ship a lot of my really good used stuff. It's because I love my local customers. I love the relationship that I have with them, and I'm looking out for them to make sure we have really good stock in the store. It's really important to me that they know I care about them. So it has changed my life being able to serve, even though it's just records, you know, serve our local community with records, to be there for them, to have things for them. You know, during the pandemic, when everything was shut down, there was a phrase that kind of came into my head that I thought, in all this that's going on, in all this terrible stuff that's going on, why records? Why, like, this is so unimportant? And then the thought that came in my head was, joy is important, and records bring joy. And that was something that I said to so many people since then, like, joy is important. Your joy is important. Your morale is important. Things that make you happy, things that give you passion are important. And so for me, my record store is about having a, you know, first and foremost, paying my bills and, you know, feeding my kids and all that stuff. But, you know, the second huge benefit is that I'm able to have a little bit more flexibility in my schedule. I'm able to hire friends of mine that are really great people. I love to see how they interact with locals as well. And you know, frequent flyers in the shop. But also, like, thirdly, one of the most important parts of it is just the community aspect of being able to be around other people, to talk about things that we love. And then these records, even though the records are amazing and we love them and we're addicted to them and it drives us crazy, it's not about the records. It's about the community that like through records, I can tell you that you matter. Through records, I can tell you that I care about you. Someone walks in and they say, "Hey, I'm looking for this obscure record or whatever," and I find it and I remember them. And next time they come in, I'll say, "Hey, I got this record for you." They're not thinking, "Oh, great, this record." They're thinking, "You care enough about me to remember that," and that's the connection. That's the sweet spot. So, records have changed my life through flexibility in my job, being able to do something that I love, pour my heart into something that I love that a lot of people think is stupid, but it's something that I'm able to connect with other people, and basically just being able to contribute to society to cultivate joy in people's lives. And so, the place that I'm in now, I never thought I would have, a record shop. We're not rich. We don't have all the money in the world, nothing like that. Got a lot of records, which is even better. But having this place in our lives to where we're able to be a part of your life and the people in the area's life is something I wouldn't trade for the world. And I'm just really excited to see what the future holds. And not to mention, never thought I would have a YouTube channel that anyone would ever watch. I never thought that anyone would care about anything I had to say. And the fact that I've made so many friends online, on the internet, on YouTube, on Instagram, and we've connected so many people over records has just been amazing and phenomenal. So, have records changed my life? Absolutely. But what I really love about records that has been a conduit for me to make connections with people, and to show people that I care about them and I love them. And so, I encourage you to do the same. To use your records, not for greed. There's a lot of greedy collectors out there. Not for that, but to show people that you care and you love people with records. So, thank y'all for watching this video and hearing me talk about records. I love records, but really love people as well. And if you use records the right way, you can have both. So, thank y'all so much, and we'll see you guys next time.